Okay, I'll take your word for it. I wouldn't know that.
But you don't know.
I don't know.
All right. So, did you read the Sixth Circuit opinion to the best of your ability?
I did.
Okay. Did you notice that the Sixth Circuit opinion was referring to cases before 2016 when discussing the reasonable reader standard?
I didn't observe. I don't remember observing that.
Do you remember the citation to a case called Hustler v. Falwell?
Vaguely.
Okay. Were you familiar with that case, at least by the time you read the Sixth Circuit opinion?
I've heard of it before, but again, I'm not a lawyer. I don't understand.
Did you at least understand when you'd heard of it before that it dealt with the issue of parity?
I don't know. I can't answer that question, Mr. Chandra.
Okay. Does it refresh your recollection for me to say that the case concerned a parody written by Hustler magazine about Jerry Falwell?
Okay.
No familiarity?
No familiarity with it.
That's all I'm asking. 41 p.m. Eastern Time, correct?
Yes.
Now, please read that post into the record.
A quote, update, the City of Parma Police Department will enact a pedophile reform event outside of St. Anthony of Padua's Church on 5/1/16 in an attempt to reform pedophiles to normality. We will have multiple learning stations, including a no means no station filled with puzzles and quizzes. Anyone who passes all of the stations will be removed from the sex offender registry and accepted as an honorary police officer of the Parma Police Department. Excuse me. Have fun out there. End quote.
Now, under a reasonable reader standard, would a reasonable reader interpret that post as stating actual facts about the Parma Police Department?
Sir, I don't know what a reasonable reader would believe.
Would a reasonable reader, in your view, believe that Parma Police would do such a thing?
I don't know.
And so, just so we can be sure we nail down your testimony here, you have no idea one way or the other, whether a reasonable reader would believe that the City of Parma Police Department would enact a pedophile reform event outside of St. Anthony of Padua's Church on May 1st, 2016, correct?
That's correct.
Nor would you have any idea about whether a reasonable reader would believe that that would be an attempt to reform pedophiles to normality, correct?
Correct.
And you have no idea whether a reasonable reader would believe that this event would consist of multiple learning stations, including a no means no station filled with puzzles and quizzes, correct?
That's correct.
Nor do you have any clue about whether a reasonable reader would believe that anyone who passes all of those stations would be removed from the sex offender registry and accepted as an honorary police officer of the Parma Police Department, correct?
That's correct.
Nor do you have any idea about whether a reasonable reader would believe that at the end of such a post, the Parma Police Department would say, with an exclamation mark, have fun out there, right?
That's correct.
Is there something about the Parma Police Department that, in your view, would cause a reasonable reader to believe that Parma Police would do such a thing?
I don't know.
So you don't know whether the Parma Police Department have a history of accepting pedophiles who've been reformed as officers?
I never heard of a history of the Parma Police Department doing that.
Or having pedophile reform events?
I don't recall that.
Having no means no station filled with puzzles and quizzes?
I don't recall that either.
Do you recall hearing about any instance in which people who passed such tests would then be removed from the sex offender registry and accepted as honorary police officers of the Parma Police Department?
No.
So is it fair to say there is nothing that you're aware of in the Parma Police Department's history that would make this post believable to a reasonable person?
I'm not aware of anything in Parma Police Department's history.
Are you aware of anything, of any authority that the Parma Police Department has that would give them the authority to host such an event? That could remove people from the sex offender registry?
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm going to take you back to the people closest in your life that you believe. My question was not what you would hope. My question was not whether people actually did. That wasn't my question. My question was the question that's just read to you. It was whether you believe that a reasonable reader would interpret that post about a temporary law against feeding the homeless and starving them out of Parma as stating actual facts.
Again, Mr. Chandra, I can speak for myself. I knew.
I'm not asking you to.
Okay, well,
I'm asking you to state your belief about what a reasonable reader, would a reasonable reader interpret that post as stating actual facts. And respectfully, I think it's susceptible to a yes or no answer.
I disagree with you. I think that you're asking me to hypothesize about what people in general would agree with that. I don't know what people, somebody would read this, and I don't know. I would hope that people would read this and know that it's not real, but I can't speak for everybody that would read it. I do know for a fact, and I'm going to say it again, that there were dozens and dozens of people that believed this was real. This particular post believed this was real. So I understand what you're trying to get at, and I understand your question, but I'm trying to give you an honest answer.
You understand at this point that the law subjects parody to a test as to whether a reasonable reader would interpret the post as stating actual facts. You get that, right?
Again, I'm not familiar with the legal interpretations of parody as they apply in the law. I don't have the training, the legal training that you have to understand that.
And I quote, "We have forgotten to post that on September 30th, 2015, at approximately 10 a.m., the Parma Subway sandwich shop located at 5890 Broadview Road was robbed at knife point. The white male offender got away with a small amount of money and did not harm the clerk. Moments after, an unrelated African-American woman was seen loitering for over 20 minutes in front of the store despite their no loitering policy. If you have any information regarding this African-American woman's whereabouts, please contact the City of Parma Police Department so that she may be brought to justice. This is the best still photo we have of the offender. Mentor Police and Middlebury Heights Police have reported similar loitering offenses, which may be the same female. The Parma Police Department is seeking assistance identifying the individual in the picture. Please contact Detective Joe Tremble." End quote.
First of all, there is no Detective Joe Tremble at the Parma Police Department, right?
Correct.
So anybody who is trying to inquire about this post, make a call and could verify that there is no such person, correct?
Yes.
And if you could take a look back at Plaintiff's Exhibit 3, I just want to make sure that we're on the same page here, literally and figuratively. The posts, except for the stay at home with the family posts, are all screenshotted there, correct?
Yes.
Including this one that you just read, and so the photo is in there, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, under a reasonable reader standard, in your view, would a reasonable reader interpret this post as stating actual facts?
I don't know what a reasonable reader would believe, sir.
And that means that you don't know whether a reasonable reader would believe that Parma police would talk about a robbery, but then be more focused on a woman who was loitering outside of the robbery than the robbery itself, correct?
And if I understood your question, you asked me about a reasonable reader.
Yes.
And I don't know what a reasonable reader would believe in regards to that post.
Is there something about the Parma Police Department that makes that post believable?
No.
Think are believable by a reasonable reader?
Continuing objection.
Sir, I don't know what a reasonable reader would believe.
I'm asking you about parts of it. Are there any parts of it you can identify that you think a reasonable reader would believe?
Again, sir, I don't know what a reasonable reader would believe, regardless of parts or the whole post.
So, do you believe that a reasonable reader would believe that the Parma Police Department would be capable of, on their own, introducing a new temporary law of any kind?
I don't know what a reasonable reader would believe.
Okay, that wasn't my question. I asked you about a specific portion of this post. You understand that the police are not capable of issuing their own laws, correct?
I do as a law enforcement officer, yes.
But you think it takes a law enforcement background to understand that the police can't just make their own laws?
I didn't say that.
Well, I'm asking you whether that's what you believe. Because you just said, as a law enforcement officer, you understand that.
Yes.
So my question is, does it take a law enforcement background for anyone to understand that police can't just issue their own laws?
It does not take a law enforcement background.
Right. It's kind of common knowledge. Fair to say?
I don't know that.
You have no idea.
I don't know that it's common knowledge.
So the idea of even middle school or high school civics where legislative bodies create the law, that's something that you have no idea whether there'd be common knowledge in the public about that.
Sir, I don't know about what common knowledge in the public. I don't know about common knowledge in the public. I don't know what people believe.
And the portion of the post about forbidding residents of Parma from giving any homeless person food, money, or shelter in our city for 90 days, there's a portion after that says that this is an attempt to have the homeless population eventually leave our city due to starvation. Do you believe that a reasonable reader of this post would believe that the Parma police would do that?
Sir, again, I don't know what a reasonable reader would believe.
No clue.
No.
About that particular assertion, no clue about whether a reasonable reader would believe that. You have no idea.
I don't.
Don't check my Facebook account very often.
Okay. But The Onion you're familiar with.
Yes.
Are there other sort of parody news stories that you get a kick out of besides The Onion?
There was something I just saw a few weeks ago. I can't remember what it was called. It was the Daily Beast or something to that effect. There was another one that I just saw recently, but The Onion's the main one that I do read.
Okay. You understand that part of the humor of The Onion is that the story is styled like a real news story, right?
Yes.
And so you also understand, it sounds like somebody who enjoys it, that part of the joke is being fooled for however many seconds or minutes you are fooled by it. Correct?
Yes.
All right. And so similarly, part of the joke here by Mr. Novak was making this Facebook page about the Parma police look close enough to the real thing, but have these outrageous, ridiculous posts on it. Fair?
Yes.
Okay. And you recognized and understood that already from the 3 posts you had seen between 8:30 and 9 a.m. on March 2nd.
Yes.
I'm not asking you for a time. I'm asking you in relation to the posts. After which post did you determine that this was a joke?
It would have been the last post.
Okay, so it took all of those posts that we went over, those 6 posts, before you determined that this was a joke?
Yes.
I have no regrets about the way this case was handled. I didn't know. I'm just giving you my thoughts that
So
day.
you thought that whoever was doing this could be a terrorist,
It crossed my mind.
but you quickly determined that that was not what was going on here,
I
right?
quickly determined that that fake Facebook page, Mr. Novak specifically, was not our actual page.
And
is what I was-
terrorism had nothing to do with it, right? You quickly figured that out. By 9 a.m., you knew that.
That's fair to say.
This might involve terrorism, which is something you testified about earlier. Did you do anything to alert the, FBI's terrorism task force?
No.
Did you take any steps in response to the thought that this might be terrorism?
I believe what I testified to earlier, that was just it was a thought. It wasn't something that I concretely said, I believe that this is. It was just a thought that I had. It was one of the things that came through my mind because, as I was stating, I didn't know what I had. I never seen anything like this before. So there were a number of scenarios that went through my head.